new BBC documentary claims that Portuguese police have apologised to the parents of Madeleine McCann for the way they handled the 3-year-old's disappearance.
Well, earlier this year, a delegation of police officers travelled from Lisbon to London to speak to the family.
Earlier, we spoke to a close friend of the McCanns, Haynes Hubbard, for his reaction to these revelations.
He arrived on Saturday evening. Madeleine went missing on Thursday evening. We came with our 3 young children and discovered what had happened, and subsequently became friends with Kate and Jerry because we had young children and we spoke English and they needed a place to come and hide, more or less. Their daughter was missing, and at the same time they were being pressed mercilessly by the police and by the press to kind of say things that the police and the press wanted them to say. From the very beginning, Kate and Jerry have not been in the least bit interested in any of the externalities. All they want is to focus attention on looking for their daughter. So a police apology really doesn't make much difference to them, I don't think, and I haven't spoken to them about this, but all they want is the world to focus on finding out what's happened to Madeleine.
Okay, let's sing another.
Kate has, all she's got of her daughter are photographs of when she was 3 years old. You know, her daughter's now 19 or 20 or whatever Madeleine is. And Kate doesn't have any photographs of the last 16 years. That's what matters.
That gentleman you were listening and looking at there was Haynes Hubbard. He was a vicar in Portugal and provided a lot of succour to the McCanns when Madeleine initially went missing. Here's Simon Harding. Simon's the director at Specialist Crime Consulting Group. Simon, what I'm just somewhat confused about here, and I'm sure a lot of people are, is that Mark Williams-Thomas has spoken out about this, and a lot of the newspapers carried this yesterday. It was front page on The Sun. And he's saying that it's not as this programme has painted things, that the Portuguese police, he's got a source within the Portuguese police who said, yeah, we did speak to the McCanns, we didn't apologise to them for anything. We simply said, right, take this case and give it to the German police because we have had our fill. We can bring this no further. And the relationships between the McCanns and the Portuguese police have historically been rock bottom, really awful. So he's saying they haven't improved. What's your thinking? What are you hearing?
Well, I think, firstly, I think the McCanns obviously haven't commented about the supposed apology. I think more than likely they would have come out and said, well, they haven't apologised, as opposed to being quiet on it. I worked in homicide at the time that, in the Met, at the time that this case came in, and it came in sort of 4 years after she went missing. And that's when the Met got involved in it and started helping. The last information, and they're being led by a really, an excellent DCI SIO still in the Met now. There's a very small team still working on it, and there's nothing coming out to say that the Portuguese police have washed their hands of the investigation. It's the German police, the British police, and the Portuguese police working together. That's the last information that I had.
Where's the energy, though? We're not saying, well, if the Portuguese police are still working on it, who's working on it the most? Is the fresh stuff coming from the German side? Are you guys still active? I mean, I know you, again, it's still open, but where's the momentum?
Well, the momentum sits, mainly with the German police because of their activity with the suspect Bruckner at the moment. So I think, but this is the support they're getting from the Met is undeniable. There's a lot of work still going on. There's people who worked in that inquiry when it came into the Met in 2011 who are still working on it now. They are completely dedicated to it. And as I said, led by somebody who's a very, very experienced homicide DCI, Mark Cranwell, who will ensure that everything is done, to the standards that we see in the Met in terms of homicide investigation. But the way that they were treated the family were treated in the original inquiry means that those prejudices and those judgments that were made about them to start with will have surely lost evidence because you get tainted and you start you're blinkered in the way that you deal with something, and that's probably one of the biggest things, because the Met have come in and said, well, what's left that we can do, and that's really the fundamental problem that, that's why that apology should be there, because of course, the way that you dealt with it in the very first start, being the Portuguese police, has potentially lost some significant evidence and leads.
I thought it was interesting, Haynes Hubbard, who we spoke to there, the vicar who knew the McCanns at the time of Maddie's disappearance, was talking in the present tense about Madeleine. He said she is 19 or 20 now, and that Kate McCann doesn't have pictures of her daughter growing up. And they were just pictured a moment ago in some of the pictures we were showing with a missing poster with one of those, modern sort of imaginations of what Maddie could look like. Is it your belief? Do you think that she is still alive, or do you sadly believe, she is long dead?
I don't think any, I've led a number of homicide investigations in London, and, until you get actual proof that somebody is dead, then of course you shouldn't be thinking that way. That's why they are still active on the case, because there doesn't seem to be anything concrete to suggest that she is dead. I know that the German police, I think about in 2020, suggested that their belief was that she was dead. And this is the time that Bruckner became their key suspect anyway. And of course, so I think, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of the Met Police, and I don't know, but certainly the people that I know that work on that case before I retired would suggest that, until there is something that tells them otherwise, then of course this is an active inquiry for somebody that's still missing.
Thank you very much indeed.